We are flying above the highest place of the world, the Himalaya mountains. According to ancient myth, gods dwell here. Several world religions, like Buddhism and Hinduism, are rooted in this region. Many people have thought through the centuries that in these ancient hills they can find the hidden peak, the saint, the goddess, the deeper levels of their selves. We would like to get acquainted with these religions, possibly without any prejudice. Western Youth in the East. That was the theme of the study tour to Thailand and Nepal, organized by the Lutheran World Federation. Our group consisted of 12 people. Carol, a student from Australia. Johanna, a student of theology from Helsinki, Finland.
By visiting them,
Annette, a teacher of religion from Denmark.
So I have responsibilities when I get back.
Brian, a student of theology from the Warburg Seminary in the USA.
In the United States, and then also to put together a large, a lengthy paper, I should say, on my experiences.
You know, probably if there is a need
Ule,
for instance, I could be
a Norwegian student of theology.
able to help you to interview later on volunteer, for instance, or if you from some
Or this
The Canadian Ken from Vancouver.
if I
high goal, for instance, going into university.
Gert, a German youth leader.
Possibilities, for instance,
But we have talking about
Lena from Sweden.
and writing reports and so that we are
Solange, a sociologist from France.
Talk a little bit about my experience here in the different church.
involved in interreligion now.
Jan, a pastor from Slovakia.
Well, maybe this expression.
working with these things.
The resource persons were Tori from Norway, Jutta, a teacher from Denmark,
just can see that their
and
focus
the Norwegian Siv,
is
the youth
that
coordinator
this.
of the Lutheran World Federation. And Tamás, a Lutheran pastor from Budapest. The purpose of our tour was getting acquainted with this culture, with special emphasis on the question what attracts more and more Western, European, American or Australian young people. Many of them visit, of course, the exotic view and tourist attractions, the islands, palm gardens, the sea, or the shocking mountains and the running rivers of Nepal. Many of these people are attracted by the cheap life here, with many possibilities for holiday and entertainment. All these have their shadows, for example, in the sex tourism in Thailand. Nepal will be visited by many in order to buy cheap drugs. On the streets, hashish can be sold together with oranges and marijuana with souvenirs. Many Westerners, furthermore, search different mental and spiritual drugs, participating on different meditation and yoga courses or reincarnation trainings. It happens several times that they disappear behind the walls of a Buddhist monastery. On our 2 week trip, we discovered the beauty of these countries: wonderful landscapes, kind people, children with big eyes, exotic meals, and religious pluralism. Main religion is Buddhism in Thailand, Buddhism and Hinduism in Nepal, but the majority of the poor population lives under the circumstances of a primitive animism. Beside a few Muslims, there exists a heroic Christian mission. Buddhism and Hinduism is rooted deeply in people's conscience. Ethnical and religious ties are mostly inseparable. Ex oriente lux. Light comes from the east, goes the old Latin saying. The teaching and practice of these two ancient religions often reflect brilliance, but the shocking shadows of all these also belong to reality. Most of us arrived after a 15-hour flight to the busy international airport of Bangkok. After making a deal with the taxi driver, we had to drive 2 hours to get into the city. We saw lots of people everywhere, both in public transportation and in building houses. Modern Japanese cars and simple tricycles were running in the streets. At this point, monks in their special wheels were something extraordinary, but later on we got used to seeing them all over. The simple accommodation of ours was not far from the ill-famed Khao Sam road. So here we spent the first night. That was quite a hot one for February. Next morning we took a boat to get to the famous Buddhist temple of Bangkok. The river runs through and through the city, from one end to the other. As Bangkok is a city with 10 million inhabitants, people use ships just like we use buses in our country. The foreground of the temple is crowded with tourists and their necessary exploiters. Inside, people do their sacrifices. You can find sculptures of Buddha in different sizes and monks of all ages. Radars and temples symbolize the modern and traditional world respectively. There's a beautiful view onto the city from here. The richly decorated temple is a real place of pilgrimage. The colorful crowd of the sellers help us to get back into everyday life. It's good to be careful because prices are very different and many pickpockets are said to be here. Exotic food and different types of meat is sold in the street, but we are recommended not even taste them because our Western stomach would not like it. Also in the afternoon, we go and see this peculiar town from the ship. Homeless people are cleaning themselves in the port. We know that they live under bridges with millions of others. From a funny little boat, we can see the houses, cottages and palaces built on the water, and people who live in them, and the palm trees. Housewives even do their shoppings by boat, and the inventive beer seller finds us here as well. This first day has helped us to regenerate. This was indeed necessary because of the 8 hours difference of time. The evening we spent on Kansam Road again, where something always happens. In the mornings and evenings we do a short liturgy ourselves, but as today is Sunday, we go to the local Anglican church to take part in their service. Most people in the congregation are diplomats and businessmen working here, but there are some Thai people as well. After the procession, which is a part of the service in the Anglican High Church tradition, the Sunday school teacher is speaking about Princess Diana in a natural and funny way.
Wishes for things that would make you really happy. And I might ask you for them in a minute. Children, can you think of 3 wishes that you might... Because God can cheer them up. That if you're rich or beautiful or...
After the nice singing of the children, we also take part in the communion.
Right, now this is
It is natural for the people to stay for coffee or tea after the service. This month it is still convenient for having a chat under the shady trees. There are a lot of magnificent buildings in this part of the city, but the transport is as chaotic as anywhere else. The typical tricycles are very peculiar for the first time, but after a while you will have enough of the dust and petrol vapor in your mouth. We only can get into the royal palace after a strict checking. People in shorts or skirts won't be let in. You can borrow trousers on the spot. The castle and its area counts as sacred land, being a place of pilgrimage as well. But a typical Thai box can't be missed here either. People doing their offerings here are actually no Buddhists, but they belong to a kind of folk religion, a primitive animism. That is why they are so steadily in praying, in lighting candles, and doing sacrifices. You can only step into the sanctuary barefooted. On the next day, we go to the characteristic monastery of the Dhammakaya Buddhism. Ancient and modern can be found here too. Before having a dialogue with the monks, we take part in their meal and meditation. Their typical meditation is closed by chanting. The monastery of the Dhammakaya Foundation is different from the ancient Thai religious communities. They are not only for monks, but are opened to the modern world. Both their technical facilities and methods are most modern. Their new practice of having the sacrifices on Sundays, that is not according to the lunar diary, is also modern. A big part of their audience come from civil local population, so they not only have services for themselves. We also could see a video about their work and their widespread international network. We can meet their leader, called the Abbé.
The supreme enlightenment.
With his perfect English, he leads us into the teaching of Dhammakaya Buddhism, of which we often think a little skeptically. Anyway, there seem to be a great variety of teachings within Buddhism.
For tradition, just to a family value to pay back for one's own mother. So, in a way, is a recollection of the value of Buddhism, that there is something called
On the next day, we take the train to visit another Buddhist monastery. The waiting hall gives us an excellent chance to meet people of a different level of the society.
Yes, recovered from the
Yes,
Vietnam
yes.
experience.
After a nice route in a taxi, we arrive at a monastery in the middle of the jungle, close to a town called Ubon Ratchathani. The first thing that affects us after the noise of the city is its silence. We already know that the monks burn their deads here. In the foreground of the kitchen, you can read the 8 rules of Buddhism. We are lucky to get something for breakfast, as there is a whole day feast in the monastery afterwards. It is very interesting to see that the monks here have all of Western origin. They have come from America, Australia, or Western Europe in order to live in one of the real worlds of Buddhism. Our guide, a young American monk, kindly draws our attention onto the fact that staying more than 3 days in their monastery would mean that we have to share our hair and put a white cloth on. In a moment we'd have decided not to stay longer than 2 days. In the afternoon, all the monks and guests meet in the abbe's house, a Buddhist 5 o'clock tea in the middle of the jungle. During the walk through their holy places, the central placement of the embryo and skeleton occurs us. It all serves for meditation about life and mortality, birth and death. The monks live in simple wooden houses built on piles. They are needed against cobras and other dangerous animals living in that area. But in the evening, a heavy silence falls on the monastery. Only some lonely meditating monks are to be seen in the darkness. The monks wake up at 4 in the morning, and after their morning meditation, they go out to the villages in order to receive alms in their brown bowls. It is not begging, on the contrary. They simply give the civil population the opportunity to make merits while supporting them. In their next lives, these karma may play an important role. While the monks are out of the monastery, we prepare breakfast for them. At 8 we can see how they get ready for eating. In the Thai tradition, only men can become monks, but for example in Sri Lanka, also women are ordained. This woman, for example, comes from Switzerland. After their chanting, we get breakfast too. Nobody should ask what actually is on that unusual buffet. After 2 days, we say goodbye to that community. In the town, we can meet a Norwegian missionary, Pastor Jorgensen. After the food we were given in the monastery, we are really happy with the traditional Thai restaurant. Later, we have a discussion about the opportunities and difficulties of Christian mission here. We admire their efforts in order to support the poor population, not only in a spiritual way, but also giving them medical treatment or helping in the education or agriculture. People are to be taught to the basic health knowledge too. There are many who seem to be interested in the Christian mission, but they are not really ready to leave their old religion at the same time. Many think that they can be Buddhist or animist and Christian together. They are especially open for the miracle stories of the Bible, which is seemingly not far from their own ancient faith.
Use quite a lot of time talking with people, go and visit friends and relatives.
After the discussion, we go to the crowded marketplace of the town. The spirits' house serve as dwelling places for good and bad spirits. The ribbons on the streets or other objects serve as protection against harmful powers. The population of this region consists of poor but friendly people, from children with beautiful big eyes. Back to Bangkok. We became Western travelers again, full of fantastic experiences. It was morning when we arrived to the capital. After a quick shower, we left for the prison. The purpose of our tour was, namely, discovering the social problems of that country too. Western youth in the East. The journey of many Westerners end in a prison, either because of drug problems or any other crimes. It would not be allowed to take pictures here, so we can show this prison world only on a hidden way. Prisoners live under terrible circumstances, in overcrowded and dirty cells, with very little food and water. We find quite a lot of Western prisoners, and we can only hope that the some words we could share and the rather symbolic present we gave them helped at least a bit on their suffering. We had the opportunity to talk to the German prison chaplain. To speak about her Christian faith, describing the basic differences between Buddha and Jesus Christ.
Ihm ist alle Gewalt im Himmel und auf Erden gegeben. Und Buddha ist auch kein Erlöser.
We visit another prison, an even worse place. People without valid visa are caught by the authorities in Thailand. The Westerners are usually taken out quite quickly by their embassies, but there are hundreds of third world people here, treated as animals. The hands reaching out through the fences simply snatched out the soaps and fruit from our hands. There are many Burmese, Chinese, Cambodians staying here under awful circumstances. In one of the cells, a woman gives birth to a child in front of our eyes. We are deeply troubled in our soul when we return to the guest house, where we have an evaluation of all these.
Of course, many thoughts came up, and they had only lectures about Buddhism, and they couldn't ask anything. They couldn't discuss with anyone.
This is our last night in Bangkok. After the Thai specialities through the whole week, it is a real pleasure to enjoy the taste of a pizzeria. After meal, we see the sad reality of life in Bangkok when we walk on Phet Pong. This street, namely, is especially full of bars, brothels, sex massages, and other such places. Next morning, on our way to the airport, the Hungarian flag can be seen everywhere. Well, probably not the Hungarian member of the international group will be honored that way. The greeting is rather for the President of Hungary, who happened to visit Southeast Asia that very day. We are mentally quite tired. It is good to enjoy the hospitality of the famous Thai airline on the board. Meanwhile, we look curiously out of the window, watching the endless, snow-covered mountains under the plane. That is the Himalaya. We are approaching to Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, as the next place of our study trip.